Hello and welcome to the Pro Detailer Magazine podcast. We are joining you literally hours after submitting the magazine issue 17 to print, and so we're kind of looking at each other across the table. Ian, myself. Say hello, Ian.
Hello, Ian.
We are dry husks of people at the moment. Is that?
I do feel like an empty flask at the moment.
Yeah, it's been.
I've been drained.
Battery is low. It's when the Duracell bunny stops hopping. But as ever, we have rigged up the old Rodecaster, and we wanted to do an interim podcast. So that is exactly what we're doing, and we're going to chat through what is in issue 17 while it's fresh in our minds, because we have read through and edited and typeset and photographed and all the rest of it, every article about a million billion times. It
Sick of
sounds
the sight of it, to be frank.
Yeah, and the scary thing is there'll still probably be typos in there, although last one we didn't have one report of a typo over.
No.
In 15 we had a couple people write in. One had to go at my semicolons.
Can I just say, this isn't an invitation to write in and tell us about typos. We don't really, there's nothing we can do about it once it's printed.
That's true. That's the worst bit of it.
So, keep it to yourself. Little victory for yourself in your head.
I have to admit, when it arrives, it's the worst time is when it comes back from the printers. In a way, I don't like to look at it, because if there is a cock up, then there's nothing we can do, and we're sat there.
Well, the difference is this time, because we've gone over to a new print company with it, that we had to put all of the pages into the order in layout. So I'm kind of thinking to myself, when we were going through it and just double checking it on the screen in front of us before submitting, did we actually check we didn't put two pages in of the same somewhere?
Well, we did initially, didn't we? There was one that
one we did, yes. But I having done that one, I'm pretty sure we read through it.
Pretty sure. Well, that's fine. It's not like we're handing over.
Not like we can do about it now.
Tens of thousands of pounds for printing.
If you're sitting there at home now with the magazine in front of you, and you notice one of those, give yourself a little high five.
Yeah.
Don't tell us.
No.
It's not going to do anything about it because we can't.
Be crying anyway. And even the delivery is going to be fun, because I've got to get all the pre-orders amassed into a spreadsheet, and that's been sent off to the mailing company. And that's
you
got
love
to be done
spreadsheets,
time.
though.
I do love it. I do love spreadsheets, and I have to use things like the proper form, which basically, for people who decide to use all caps for addresses or names and stuff like that, or fail to capitalise their own name, this will fix that. And then also the way it spits it out is first name, second name, and separate cells. Well, that doesn't work if you're doing mailing. It has to be in the same cell. So then there's a special formula that allows me to combine two cells into one and add a space.
That sounds incredibly boring. Let's not talk about it again.
Okay. I find it quite arousing.
I can see.
Yeah, and then it's all coming in. It's coming in on a day when I'm supposed to be teaching people how to take photos. So at some point I'm going to have to say, just need to pop to the loo. And then suddenly an HGV with four or five pallets basically has to come off. So then we have to go and borrow
just for you to go to the loo.
A forklift truck, which we don't own, strangely enough, and then get that shifted in. So it's all going to be fun. But anyway, so let's go through where it starts. And it starts with, as ever, it starts with the front cover, but we'll talk about that later.
Unless you got it back to front, in which case it starts with the back cover and nothing's going to make sense.
No, but it's got a very pretty Labo Cosmetica advert on the back cover, as happens. Yeah. But the news section, we cover a bit of news. There's a bit of industry news. There's some stuff. Slims has got a foothold now in Northern Ireland, so they can ship things better.
Autobrite's got a new big warehouse.
Yeah, it's massive. I was watching a video. In order to get all the screen grabs for the article on that, I watched Mark Moss' video of him sort of showing people around as an empty shell. My God, that place is massive. They're doing really, really well. It's good to see.
So I'll never be able to have a warehouse because I'd instantly want to put a go-kart track in there.
Would you? That's what you'd do. Yeah. I'm not sure.
Or a shooting range.
Yeah.
Go-kart shooting range.
Go-kart shooting range, boom.
I'm not sure whether I'd use rifles or bows and arrows, though.
Oh, well, for my stag
I used to be an archery instructor.
Yes.
Long time ago.
Yes,
so I've got a little bit of a thing for archery. I do like it.
Okay. Well, you could be, because archery on horseback is quite fun.
Silent. They never hear you coming.
No, they just hear a little whistle and then thud. But no, it'd be quite fun to do it with 2-2. I went on my own stag do with just two other people down in the West Country about a month ago. And
and the taxi driver.
we went to a shooting range and had M4s, which were fun, with 2-2s, but semi-auto. In a range that was based in an old mine. And it was awesome. And they can shoot bigger than 50 cal there as well.
Where was that?
So where was that? Lyme Regis, and you go. It's about 15 minutes north of Lyme Regis, a deserted copper mine, I think.
I'd hope it'd be deserted if you're going to start shooting cows.
Yeah.
If it wasn't before, it will be afterwards.
Oh, it's cool. Well, they've got all sorts of contracts with MOD and stuff for supplying big bore stuff and training on it, and they've had Ukrainians over there to do some training on big caliber guns and stuff. It's very interesting. Anyway, we are going offline. So,
talking of big bores,
news. Yes, Hygan also did an interesting test with University of not of Belgium.
they got
Birmingham.
Very different places. Slightly better chocolates in Belgium. Well, I don't know. No, actually, no. Cadbury's in Birmingham. What am I talking about?
That's
Ignore
true.
that. Strike that from the record. Oh no,
you fifth columnist.
No, you can reintroduce that to the record because they're owned by Kraft now, and they've destroyed what was otherwise a good chocolate company. Going off on a tangent.
Yeah, you can tell we're tired.
We're on tired mode with Red Bull at the moment. But we've got some really cool microscope images of sponges and
electron microscope as well.
There are differences between cheap and expensive sponges. Look at us, God, we're full of the interesting stuff these days. But it is actually a really interesting little article to read.
Yes.
Not so much an interesting article to lick, but you can read
it. So that was the news. And then the CCA started off with us going to Germany. And I can't remember on podcast.
No. It started off with me arriving here at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Something like that. No, I think it was more like 3 or 4.
3 o'clock in the morning, let's say. To find that our plane had been
delayed.
Delayed, that's the word.
4 hours.
By 4 hours. So rather than you jumping in the car and us going to Heathrow immediately, I ended up going and standing on a bridge taking long exposure photos with my phone and trying to ignore the doggers, of which there are many around here.
Yes, it is. It's Dogger Central. It's proximity to...
it's on Google Maps as that.
Yeah.
Dogger's delight.
Yeah, well, it's on the shipping forecast. So that was a traumatic start to the day, and then we ended up and you had an unsatisfying giraffe. But very rarely have you ever gone to a restaurant that I've seen and been happy, because you're an ex-chef, you're always like,
who puts chilies on a bloody egg Benedict?
Well, I put Tabasco on my whole cooked breakfast, just sprayed it everywhere.
Yeah, but you're allergic to most things, so you have to do that to introduce some sort of taste into your life.
It's just to remind myself I'm still alive. So there's that. But then we landed, and we landed late because obviously the flight took off late, and there was all sorts of other things. Was that the one where somebody died in the arrivals hall?
No, that was last time.
That was last time. That was awkward.
But for them it was.
For them, yeah. For me, I had a grandstand view through the window of the aeroplane, so it was get on with it. But God, we're nice people underneath. We were supposed to be lunching with Flex, and that didn't happen. But we still.
It sounds terribly meagre, doesn't it? I was supposed to have lunch, darlings. Well, no, we just had a long flight. We were supposed to stop for lunch, catch up with people, and do that portion of our what's going on with Flex thing. But we ended up having to go straight into the factory and.
We did, and also we need to mention that we were aiming for a Polestar hire car, which we
as always. I think this is our 6th attempt to get a Polestar. I'm convinced Polestars don't actually exist within the rental network.
It's certainly possible, because they left us with a slightly dissatisfying Tesla Y. Was it a Y?
Yeah, it's Model Y.
It was a performance one.
Yeah, it was performance, long range, everything like that. But being a left-hand drive as well, it wasn't the most intuitive thing to jump into when you haven't got things like speed and that indicating in front of you. I
mean, you were disappointed, I was disappointed, and then you came home to England and bought a Tesla.
I was more disappointed in the Y than I was the e-tron, because the e-tron was awesome.
Yeah, you did like that lots.
But yes, I have since gone and
bought a Tesla 3.
Gone over to the Tesla side, yeah.
Yeah. So it's disappointing. But anyway, so we go to Flex. They've revamped their factory, and it was great. We met up with Gert and Michael Carrera. And
it's like banana. I know how to spell banana, but I just don't know how to stop spelling banana. So just carry on.
No.
Michael Carrera.
That's it. And we caught up with the lovely marketing department and walked around the factory and went to a new sort of training unit zone that they've got, demonstration zone, which was cool.
Really nicely kitted out, actually.
Yeah, and they did show us a new promo video they've done, which was amusing. It was very, very German, in kind of trying to make power tools sexy.
Yeah, I made some offhand comment.
really upset them. Yeah.
I do that a lot.
I was struggling. I have to admit.
There's a reason we haven't been back there in 6 years.
But no, it was great, and I really liked their unit. And then we went and stayed in a lovely little village, and Gert kindly came out and had dinner with us, and just keep us sort of sane. The whole place feels much more relaxed than it used to be. It used to be quite like high tension, I felt. And do you remember the first time they with the employees, they put on different coloured lanyards or
they
tabards?
had to wear different shirts to see if they'd kind of given us permission to use their image or to take photographs of them.
Yeah.
But we weren't told that until after we'd taken photographs of everybody. Went, oh, by the way, don't do that. Okay.
Exactly. So that was good. And then the following morning, it suddenly got very cold, and
it was freezing.
It wasn't that cold.
Well, when we came into land, you could see the sort of isolated patches of snow. So we were like, oh, okay, maybe that was just high ground. No, it was -4 most of the time.
Yeah, but that's not that cold. We're British, we can cope with that.
But the week before, it had been about 25 degrees there.
Well, they obviously knew we were coming, but you know. So we ended up at Shoal after a bit of a trek, and we saw some experimental cars from memory.
A 17-mile trek. They're not far away.
They're not that. Yeah, exactly. They're not far at all. And it was really nice seeing Shoal. Their factory's cool.
Really cool. Cool set of buildings as well. They've got a sort of a slightly hipster cafe feel about the offices, all very sort of low mood lighting, wood everywhere,
and clear glass walls and partitions, and the odd beanbags
to sit on.
But they were put in the most bizarre positions. It's sort of not in an obvious place. You know, if you've got a corner, you put a little beanbag in it. Also, your employees working at a company that make pads and polishing compounds, and these were like 4-man beanbags. I don't know what they do on the. It's quite weird. I felt personally, I'm the sort of guy who won't share a beanbag with certainly not with another man. But I don't know. It struck me as a bit odd, but it was nice in a kind of weird way. But the factory was awesome, and we saw all sorts of processes.
Massive as well. And
yes.
we actually got to see foam slicing and everything like that in action, because they buy in the materials as one big block, whereas a lot of guys that make foam, they get it pre-cut because there's no point in having 10 factories with 10 different slicing machines. We can just buy it all in sliced to the things you already want it.
But like with buying non-sliced bread, you can then choose how thick you want your crust.
Yes.
So there is a benefit to it.
Although crusty pads are probably not the best thing.
And they had lots of stuff. We were taken into a kind of a top secret area with lots of do not photo and stuff like that. And then, so we can't actually say all the processes that we saw. But
we can say it, but they just can't see into our mind. So we saw the sort of the shaping tools they use to lathe down the foam, and how they make their cross-cutting pads
stuff. Yes,
like
yeah. And it was certainly, there was equipment in there. We've been to quite a few pad factories. Where have we been? We've been in Rupes, where they're making pads there. Where else have we been where they were making pads?
Put me on the spot now. I'm drawing an absolute blank. I'm still in
I'm
still in
okay,
mode.
You know, we've been places, we've seen pads.
We've done things.
You weren't there, man. But anyway, and they did have some kit that I have not seen before. Is where I was going with that. So no, it was really interesting, and the folk were nice. And we were taken to a little training centre that they have, which has stored most of their show kit. And I remember the show kit from things like Automechanica and stuff like that. I've seen that before. Now it's in the back of a little garage, and they had a black Kranzel, which I've never seen before.
I think they've just painted it.
Okay, well there was that, and then there was some VW Porsche in the back, and a detailer who works there full time to sort of make use of the space when it's not being used for training or demonstrations.
And we saw the space where the new building for Scholl is going, because they're adding a whole new factory warehouse bit.
So that was cool.
Growing massively.
And then we went, and I'm trying to remember. I'm getting mixed up in my mind, but next stop was Nanalex.
Yep.
And was Nanalex the one where we stayed at quite the nice hotel?
We stayed at quite nice hotels all the place.
Yes, true, but this one was kind of a bit bigger. It had lots of glass and stuff, and we met.
That was with Scholl. That was in the middle of Ludwigsburg, I think.
Ludwigsburg, yes, and that was the night after Scholl, though, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes, so that was yes, you're right, because Martin Commander, coolest name in the world, was their commander with a K as well. Came and had dinner with us, but it was I went for a little walk late night, and mainly to try and find a charge spot for our little Tesla thing. But also just wandering around, and it was a really nice Ludwigsburg's nice place. I could
if that is the name of it, you know.
If it is,
again, I'm just kind of pulling the name out of.
Yeah, it was, you know, something.
It might have just been a battle in Ludwigsburg that I've heard about once.
It might be some atrocity that we're not supposed to talk about. But anyway, I've been doing a lot of that. So that was cool, and then we went to Nanalex and we met up with Florian.
Well, we went to, it was quite a lot longer drive to Nanalex.
It was. We had to stop and charge.
Far over on the French border, effectively in Saarbrücken.
Saarbrücken, yeah.
We had to do a little charge in Tesla, and rely on your directions that you still manage to screw up, even though the nav screen is right in front of you.
Yeah, well,
because Tesla doesn't actually tell you when to turn off until you have to turn off, and you go,
yes.
"Oh, by the way, you should have just
yes,
know,
and then it
done there."
bollocks you for not doing it. And
Yeah.
I get bollocked by real female voices enough. I don't need to get bollocked by computer ones. But anyway, we arrived there, and Josh was there, and Florin was there, and Andreas was there, and various other folk. And that was really cool.
Yeah, because we had a little play in the lab with Andreas while we were there as well. We don't go into that too much because that's still something we haven't gone through all the testing on what we eventually got Andreas to make us.
True. We did mention it in our podcast because we recorded podcasts everywhere apart from Flex because we were time short. And I think we talked about what we were doing at Nanlex when we were there. But watch this space,
Or listen to this space.
Well, listen to this space.
Don't just watch the place in front of wherever you're listening to. Unless
Well,
it's a car, in which case do carry on watching that. I think that's covered all bases.
I think you're good. Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. And I know that Josh is bringing to Waxstock our thing,
Our concoction,
so that we can actually start doing a little bit of playing and get stuff sorted. So that'd be fun. But no, they've got. So when I went to Nanlex years and years and years ago with Matt Bedworth, our former videographer, really,
He's just got engaged.
He has.
Congratulations, man.
He was in the local paper getting engaged, and he's bought
in a
an Audi.
giraffe house.
Yes, in a giraffe house, and he's bought an S6, the V10 one, which he actually took me to my civil partnership in because he was a photographer at my wedding.
Went very Cornwall there.
It was very turning up in quiet Chippenham, and he's fiddled the exhaust in this V10 that makes a lot of noise without going very quickly. It was quite something, and he can't drive slowly, which was really awkward when trying to be civilized. But anyway, Matt, lovely Matt, and we were there, and Nanlex had got the top, the kind of the school atop of the big rail yard factory thing, but now they appear to have bought most of the rail yard factory. They've got 4 or 5 units.
They've got 5 units down. Or is it 5 units down the bottom, or 5 units including the original?
I think he's selling one and buying another, or doing something. But anyway, it's a big space. It's even got like train line going through the middle of the factory. That I think in some places they're concreted over, and it's next to a fish farm.
Yeah, a fish farm that they keep on flooding the other factories with fish.
Florin was quite sinister. We asked him, he said it's happened. He said the first time, okay, mistakes happen. The second time, I was knocked off and it smelt terrible and it was bad. And the third time, I went over there and told them what would happen if it happened again. It was interesting. And so we went to the labs.
Why is he suddenly from Kazakhstan?
Because I don't want to do a German accent because it's more offensive, but I don't think we've got too many Kazakhstani listeners.
You can never have too many Kazakhstani.
And then I remember that day ended quite late. We did a podcast with cigars in their kind of demo unit, and then we went to this lovely little restaurant in Saarbrücken town.
It was a lovely restaurant.
Yeah.
It's quite funny because we went in 2 cars. I went in with Andy, you went with Florin. We're driving along.
I had to get a BMW.
I think it's on Riverside, isn't it?
Yes.
In the middle of town. And Andy pointed out this theatre to me, and he goes, "That's that theatre." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's nice." He goes, "Yeah, that was Hitler's favourite theatre." I was like, "Oh, nice." But what was really cool was that it was covered in rainbow lighting.
Oh, okay.
So it's like the ultimate fuck you to him.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sure he'd be really knocked off if he saw that turning in his
bunker. Okay, again, moving off the topic. So that was cool. And then the final day, we zipped to Menzerner, which was
onto the airport.
But we went to France first.
We had to go via France, where we parked up and charged next to a Ferris wheel because that's what you have in shopping parks in France. You have a Decathlon, you have a McDonald's, you have an Auchan, and you have a theme park with a Ferris wheel in it.
In fairness, I mean, you and I both know France fairly well, and that part, which is the kind of middle, halfway down Eastern, is perhaps one of the weirdest parts of France.
It's quite odd. Yeah, it's Alsace, isn't it? Or is it a bit lower than Alsace?
No, it's down from Alsace.
It's down from there. Yeah, because Alsace kind of comes down and then it juts into Germany, where Saarbrücken is.
Yes.
And then you've got that little kind of gap, and that's the bit
we were in.
We routed through.
It's a bit close. They come to Germany for supplies and women, and then Alsace though is more of a kind of forestry mountain kind of place.
They're also a bit weird, but they make nice wine. So
they make nice wine.
Forgive them.
Ish. They're quite sweet, but then you like your weird sweet whites, don't you? So we went there, and then we finally made it to Menzerner. And Menzerner is another great big facility. Never been there before. Met the lovely Hannah and Mona. and we kept on getting trapped behind the security door. So I've got quite a lot of security there, and we kept on going out for vapes and then failing to get through and stuff. So we spent a lot of time awkwardly sitting in an empty foyer, kind of waving at people.
But they have got a robotic arm that does polishing, which is quite cool.
That is really cool. In fact, they've got a lot of hardcore kit. And the other thing about Manzana, we always think of bottles and car polishing, but obviously they do a lot of like solid soaps and bits and bobs for polishing in industrial applications. So we got to see some big machines working. And then they've got a demo room as well with more polisher machines than I've ever seen at manufacturers, because they had Flex, Rupes, Festool, Liquid Elements. They even had, I think, Vertool as well. There are quite a few on the wall. And a lovely chap who's sort of a detailer plus, really.
Yeah, Freddie's kind of their fixer guy, so he's the one that does all the testing, goes out to manufacturers and does problem solving for them. Yeah.
And you had a play with machines and him on a boot, didn't you?
Yes.
Well, I went around and tried to rearrange their display cabinets for better photos.
Mm-hmm.
And we did a podcast there with, we went to the lab, which we have many photos of, but not that many were published because it ended up, I appear to have taken accidentally on purpose photos of really cool bits of machinery which are very, very secret, and special plates that they use for like assessing new products coming in and bits and bobs. So we did look around there, and the coolest thing I saw there, not the coolest thing, but an interesting thing I saw there was a whiteboard that stretched about 20 foot, and employees are encouraged to put an idea at one end, and then a manager comes along and says, oh, we could push this forward, and it literally goes in sections and it goes to different departments, and then at the other end it means it's been released to market.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really fun.
So it's kind of like a nice crowdsourcing ideas board.
Exactly that. And we talked to we did a podcast with the chemist Kai.
Yes.
And that was interesting. There was a bit, I think from a language point of view, that was our hardest podcast yet.
Yeah, he had very good English, but he obviously wanted to make sure that all the answers he gave were correct. So we did give him a list of initial questions in the first place, and obviously we tend to go off on tangents quite a lot. So it was a little bit more stilted, if you like, but some really interesting info out of it. And Kai's a really lovely guy.
Oh, he's a lovely guy. And
does have a Ford Focus, but
he had a Ford Focus, and then he bought another Ford Focus to replace it. So imagination. But no, he was good. I think it was just also a slight fear of maintaining company compliance. That was the main drag. But then we went into the factory itself and met with a mammoth of a man who was in charge of basically production.
One of the happiest people I've ever met as well. He's a guy that genuinely loves his job.
Now, the feeling I was getting was Steve McMahon, but German. They're both big lads.
No.
Both smiley.
Just a very happy-go-lucky. He's in the right place. He's found his exact niche in life, and that is running this entire production facility for Manzana, which is huge and
complicated.
Yes, it's the size of some of the mixing machines they have there for their compounds. It was up to like 32-ton mixing machines at one point. Not the weight of the machine, the weight of the product that can go in the machine. Yeah,
it was insane. And they also, I've never seen solid polishing soaps being manufactured, and that was like literally thick, gloopy liquid poured straight into the like cardboard container, and then it goes up a conveyor belt where it's then force dried sort of thing and then sealed. It was
I've got a feeling I have seen that before somewhere else, but like you say, very, very interesting to see that happening. How it has to be slowly cooled down from 80 odd degrees in a liquid state to so it doesn't crack in the
tin
in the box.
No, that was cool. And then we went there, had another huge warehouse. And then if you go out the back, because we both went out the back, I saw a tractor of some description. I seem to remember it wasn't a forklift. It wasn't really a tractor either.
Well, no, there's a Unimogs out front, wasn't there?
Out front. Unimogs out front,
Unimog dealer.
No, I went and had a bit of a lick there. Mm-hmm. But no, out the back, because they had dozens and dozens and dozens of these big steel kind of vats, basically, for storage and management. And they had this really, as I say, I can't describe the vehicle apart from a kind of a stretched forklift. But it was cool. It had off-road tyres on.
Not a telly.
No, it wasn't quite a telly, but it had similarities to that. But then it also has similarities to a Hiab. So anyway, it was an awesome machine, and I like that sort of thing. So that was Manzana. We then got back to where were we flying to? Stuttgart.
From Stuttgart.
Got to Stuttgart. Is that where my lighter got nicked?
Yes.
Okay, so this was brutal. So I tend to, on this occasion, book the flights and that side of things, and we had one check-in or two. No, we had
2 check-ins, one under each name.
Yes, but both the check-in bags were actually my gear, And so Ian packed in effectively my overnight bag with some various other bits and bobs in, and that was checked in his name. We got through security. We got through all the levels, so we were sat waiting.
Passport control.
Passport, yeah.
In our own little glass
kind of prison.
Yes.
And then over the tannoy, first time, something that sounded a bit like Sealy came over the tannoy and saying something, go to security, etc., etc. So we did what we would normally do and completely ignore it. And then a second time that happened.
In between that, we were accosted by Bundespolice to check that we didn't have lots of money.
Yeah.
Fools.
I just showed him a photo of my Subaru and he was like, oh no, we have no problems here. They were very friendly, but in a very sinister way.
Sympathetic, but friendly.
Yeah. But they were, when people are nice, but they've got guns. That was my feeling, because they had guns.
They can be nice because they've got guns.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't have anything to prove. We could just shoot you.
Yeah, exactly. So that happened. Then it came over again. And so Ian sort of tried to call airport security from the other side, and they said, oh, just come through security. And they said, I can't, because there's like men with guns and stuff. And so they sent a security guard to come and collect you,
yes.
Who then came, and you were faced in a small room with multiple security guards and my bag, my toolie.
Everybody wearing rubber gloves and looking at me expectantly.
And you were just trying to hide your arousal.
Just hearing the unzipping of trousers around me. Oh, it's this game again, is it?
And anyway, so then my bag was opened, and in there I had a Davidoff lighter that I have treasured for over 15 years.
Like a jet lighter.
It's a jet lighter, and I've travelled all over the world with it, and it is it is of great value. I was given it by a dear friend who's no longer with us, and it was a special piece of kit. Anyway, they said it is too powerful to be taken on an aeroplane, even in check-in baggage. And so Ian valiantly fought for half an hour to, could you send it by post or something? Could we come to some arrangement? Can you just pretend you didn't see it?
Well, I said, could I put it in my pocket? And they went, no. I went, all right, fair enough.
Yeah. So anyway, I lost that. And it was good. I then looked how much it would cost to replace it, and we're talking hundreds and hundreds. So, so that was the bitter aftertaste of our trip to Germany, despite the fact that I had taken that object to everywhere, even America. I had that I took that to California. But hey-ho, I'm not bitter. Much. So that was our German trip. And then we came back, and where did we... No, you went next, was back to France.
I went over to Tours again.
Mm.
To Tours, not Tours. You don't pronounce the S.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah. Detailing show over in France again. It's really nice to catch up with everybody over there again. Also, saw the likes of Fictech,
Benoit,
lovely Benoit, who's our French distributor now as well.
Yes. Although it's quite funny, he said, don't deliver any magazines till September because the whole country is on holiday for all of August.
I mean, at least they're not on strike, or rioting.
I just love the idea of being like, just the whole country just stops for a month. Just bizarre.
No, there were some really interesting exhibitors there this year as well. There was Crytex again with their in force.
Do we know where they actually come from? Because I think I accidentally called them Russian last time, and they're not Russian, but they are Russian.
I'm going to steer away from this conversation. Their offices are currently not based in Russia, and I couldn't comment one way or the other where they are actually from.
But they did have lots of very cool blacked out 4x4s.
I don't know. Let's just not encourage those 4x4s to come here.
But
stir the pot if you don't have to. No, honestly, I don't actually know for sure where they're from.
No,
they are, but they've got a massive following over in Europe now. Lots of money being pumped into the coating brand, and they were one of the title sponsors of Detailing Show this time around as well. Also caught up with Diamond Protec.
Yes, from Switzerland.
Yeah, that have the nano diamond coating.
We've got a couple of boxes out here. We really ought to actually do some more testing
have a bit
on that.
more of a play with that, yeah. But hopefully we'll be going over and seeing them at some point in the near future, talking to Roberto, one of the owners, and actually really interesting background to him as well. He used to work for the United... Well, he used to work to do weapons contracts and had to be basically on first name terms with all of the foreign ministries around the world, because anytime you export a weapon, you have to get multiple countries that have contributed parts to that weapon to sign off on it. So to make one delivery, you had to go to 5 countries, meet up with one of the most powerful people in the country and say, would you mind if I sell to these guys? That really interesting history, and actually quite a lot of very interesting tech behind the product. Hence why we're quite keen to go over and see it being made, manufactured, demonstrated.
Yeah,
and
there's quite a lot going on in
behind it.
Switzerland from a detailing point of view. We've got obviously Swizzol/Swissfax.
Yeah,
Be nice to go over see them as well.
Yeah.
And then they got the cowbells and the cuckoo clocks. That's always good. But also it's quite nice and mountainous. I can't
Lying
take
on the hill with a lonely goat herd.
Yeah,
Something like that.
I know I can't take any of my cars there. None of them meet any of the environmental requirements.
I won't make it either.
Well, there's that. But yeah, so the
environmental requirements are the trail of oil behind it. It's not the emissions. Well, it is the emissions. They're just a little bit more liquid than most.
And hey, if the engine doesn't start, it's not making any emissions. So then I went back to Germany and went to Decon, which was cool. And I went in tandem with the legendary Dave Kendall of Lake Country, along with Justina Briss, who is now Lake Country, but at the time it was all very much in the air, but she's very much now Lake Country. And
Dave can now no longer drive in Germany?
Yeah, so we it was hilarious because we turned up to the car rental desk and Justina... he engaged Justina and Dave. I just stood awkwardly at the back as per, and just the car rental man was flirting madly with Justina and saying, "Oh, you look like you need a fast car" and stuff like that. And she turned around and said, "Oh, I like a Mercedes." And then so he basically said, "I can get you a Mercedes E400 AMG," and her eyes lit up, and she was like, "Yes, yes." And then he turned to Dave and said, "That'll be €280 more then, please, sir." At which point he hands over the dollar, and then Justina says, "I've got us this car," and I'm like, I think Dave did.
I could have done that on the website.
Yes. But anyway, we then go to the VIP because we've flown there before, wherever it was. Was it Hanover?
Yes.
And it was the same kind of VIP collection area that we went to. And got in, and it was...
it was exactly the same VIP collection we went to.
Yes.
But we got our car from.
It was the same place where we got the GT Audi thing that you got into. E-tron. And got in there, and then it's supposed to take about an hour and 10 minutes from there. We were traffic all the way, stop-start, took us 4 hours, we missed dinner. And we got in after a very long day at about, I think we got in about 11. Thankfully, Moritz had organised, I called ahead to Moritz and said, "Look, this is pretty devastating stuff here. We haven't eaten all day. It's going to be late. It's pouring with rain. We're in traffic and I'm in a Mercedes." And he took sympathy and managed to steal from an event going on at a neighbouring thing, just steal all the, I don't want to call them canapes. It was mostly just sausage and
leftovers.
Soup. Yeah, leftovers, but it was good sausage.
It was all in a bag. You put it around your neck and you just went to town.
A huge cauldron of sausage. And it was all spicy sausage. So that's all I had. I ate probably about 1.5 kilos of it. And then
I went to a club once called the Cauldron of Sausage.
I'm not surprised. And yeah, so we got in, and then the following day we did the show, and it was really good. It was bigger but a bit more space. And no, I thought it was fun. And then we had stupidly,
because Labo were there for the first time this year.
They were, and Reggie was there, and Reggie had a strap-on camera.
Is there a comma in there?
Yeah, just to be quite clear. But walked around basically filming his life. He said there wasn't enough time to do separate stuff, so he just straps a camera to him.
He has chest cam, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Like Iron Man.
It's nipple shot.
Yeah.
And he was doing...
Slightly shitter Iron Man. Less of the flying, more of the, hey guys.
Well, it was quite funny because he's got lots of groupies, as Reggie, because he's an awesome legend of a man. And so we were often hiding behind the scenes together, drinking the free coffee to avoid all the mostly young men throwing themselves at him.
A Dutch person going after free stuff?
No, that was me.
Believe it.
And the girls from Auto Mechanica were there as well.
Yes.
And handed me spy photos of you and me that they'd taken when we were at Auto Mechanica.
I haven't seen these.
No, I've got them on literally 35mm analog.
Is it like a bush in the photo as well?
It was a bit strange. And anyway, so that was good. And then, because it was a bank holiday weekend, Dave had decided that we ought to get 6 o'clock flights home, so we actually get home in time for having... AM, yeah, for having a thing, which meant that we had to be up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then again pouring with rain, but no traffic this time. Dave on the way home was not driving particularly fast. I've never really seen him drive that fast, and it was only an E400 AMG, so it doesn't really go that fast. But anyway, he got a speeding ticket, and he has he's shown me a photo of his letter that he's received from Germany. One of the few benefits I would have thought we get from Brexit is not have to do it, but apparently we do. And it was from Herr Wanker. I shit you not, literally. And it's a picture of him looking sort of slightly grumpy at the wheel. And even though it's pitch black in the rain, it's still you can tell it's Dave with his thing. And he's being bollocked for doing it's something silly like 42 kilometres in a 30 kilometre zone.
I'm never sure if you do actually have to pay those or not.
No, I don't think he's going to take the risk because he is obviously international sales manager and therefore needs to go back to Germany without getting shot. So yeah, that was the end of that one. But still,
fine as long as he doesn't pack a jet lighter in his suitcase.
So that was Decon and obviously detailing show, and then I went to Rapfest at Silverstone, which was interesting. Lots of stairs. Just an FYI, if you're at Silverstone, and I don't know how many people have been to Silverstone before, but if you're going to like the exhibiting centre in the middle, you have to go all the way up over the Sky Bridge, all the way down, and then a little way up again. And when you're lugging about 38 kilos of camera kit, it means that when you enter the show and you've got the very pretty scantily clad ladies, because obviously it's rapping and that's cool, doing the tickets. And
they rap their scantily clad ladies.
They were in
painted.
I didn't touch, but yeah, I turned up basically sweating like a horse, and because horses are known for sweating, and yeah, just made a tit of myself basically, and just stammered like a little boy. But anyway, it was an interesting show. Angel Wax were there. With a newish line of PPF that they're teaming up with another company that's, I believe, is US based, but there's also some European, possibly German connections or Swiss, can't remember. And some cool cars outside and a really cool DJ van lorry deck thing, which was cool. Yeah, and they had a Tonka toy pickup truck done like a Tamiya.
You've missed
kit.
one. You went to Serum Summit as well.
Went to Serum Summit, Mercedes-Benz World.
That was before Rapfest.
That was before, yeah. Yep. That was a cock up because, well, it wasn't. It was great, but I cocked up because I turned up in my little red Fiesta van, and all the car parks were full of these Mercedes, and I was like, okay, well, this clearly isn't where I'm supposed to park. So I ended up in an aviation museum, and I got distracted because I love airplanes. So I just
sounds like a bonus.
Wandered around there, yeah, and then I came back.
Brooklands, wasn't it?
No, yes, it was Brooklands. Yes, absolutely. And so then I called, in fact, Dave Kendall again and said, where the hell is everybody parking? And he gave me the name of the car park. I went there, and it was full of Mercedes, so lots of old drivers who are going to dent my doors and stuff like that. So I went and parked in a hotel car park, and then I fear got parking ticket, but it might have blown off. So, yeah, that's what happened. And Serum Summit, though, really nicely put on. I thought it was really good, and it's what the industry needs. I think the numbers expected didn't quite get there in reality, but I think that G-Technic particularly should be massively applauded for going through all the effort. It's not a moneymaker for them, and it's more brand awareness, but I think it's really good for the industry, and I think it should be supported, and I think more brands. The only complication you've got is they're non-competing brands, so it's a show where you've got one coating supplier, you've got one PPF supplier, etc., which is grand. But it's the thing where Waxstock does better is because you can go to see 10 coating suppliers in a day and, think about it. So, no, but still, it's a good show, and it was good to meet the Urable guys as well, and various other people. So that was...
after Rapfest, sorry, I'm pushing through this because it was supposed to be a 20-minute section and we're already on 40 minutes.
Holy bollocks, right. Well, we did PVD Tour as well.
Oh, no, we missed one. Automechanica UK.
Automechanica UK. Do you want to talk about that? You were there too.
Yeah, I arrived there. We ended up having to pay £17.50 for car parking, didn't we?
Absolute freaking nightmare. And
I wouldn't mind if it was at least like next to the front door, but yeah, they'd had to walk for 10 or 15 minutes to actually get to the front door.
Yeah, and I was in. We took my electric thing, and we, no polar bears were harmed or anything like that, and I feel like I should be applauded for,
But no, you actually have to pay extra at the NEC to park in a charging space, which you then have to pay for. God, I hate Birmingham.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit unfair dosing everything on Birmingham for that. But the last time I went to Birmingham, I then got fined in VOD for driving because I don't have a brand new Tesla. And I didn't have the electric car then, to be fair. And they fined me for going into the centre of Birmingham, which seemed to be full of what looked like 14-year-old boys driving £400,000 Mercedes G-Wagons around town with the windows open, looking sinister. That's
a G-Wagon thing.
It is a G-Wagon thing, but it was bizarre, absolutely bizarre. So no, still don't like it.
But first edition of the detailing hub in the UK. Obviously, Automechanica in Frankfurt had the first one last year with Auto Le Caffin presenting that, and it was a really well curated event. We went over there to do a presentation at the Automechanica UK. They had Rich, who was the penultimate guest on the last season of the podcast.
Yes.
Hosting it as UK Detailing Academy, curating some little talks and everything like that.
Yeah, loads of live. We had Gliptone did lots of live stuff. Flex did lots of live stuff. Lake Country did some live stuff as well. And it was good to see these kind of so we would call them mainstream detailing brands, but to see niche detailing brands in the mainstream aftermarket industry.
Yeah, it depends on the pond you're in, effectively, doesn't it?
Yeah. It was like a little bit of the detailing pond sort of dribbling over into the reservoir of the automotive aftermarket.
Oozing, maybe.
Oozing, yeah. And then it was funny because there are also some people like Lucas and a couple of others, Liquid Molly and people like that, I think, who are more in the aftermarket, who are kind of bleeding over into the detailing product. I mean, they're more retail garage sort of products, but still. It's potential coming together. So
that was a good. We only went for the 1 day, but there was a 3-day event, and generally positive feedback all around. I think they just need to take what they learned from putting this first event on in 2 years when it comes back to the UK again. If they can implement a few little tweaks to it, I think they'll have a good little show within a show there. Yeah,
needs evolution, and I think it's sort of expectations that I know the stand pricing was extortionate compared to other shows, and I think there's a lot of administration involved in running anything at the NEC, particularly.
Yeah, that's symptomatic of the location rather than anything else.
It is, and also it's a German company that's running through. They've got some bods on the ground, some is agency stuff, so there's a big team behind it. So it's a matter of tightening that up and getting it slicker, and then being able to provide it, for more companies that can afford it. So if it came in the same sort of price band as Waxstock, then I think they would be able to fill many more stalls and stuff, and it could become a thing. But that is CCA. We did a PVD tour around the country, and that's in there too. But if we went through that, we would be at 3 hours by the time we finished. So,
yeah, what we should do is we should write it all down, put it in some sort of magazine folder that people can buy and read.
Stupid bloody idea.
Let's move on to
new products.
A quick glance over new products. Let's just pick our favourite from it. We'll move this on a little bit.
Yeah. Okie dokie. Well, do you want to talk about your renewable?
Yeah, quite an interesting new little brand is Healy Super 8, based down in
Dorset.
Southwest based. Wade Healy's been in Valencin for quite a long time, and what's interesting about the products themselves are perfectly serviceable and good, is the concept he's taking, dropping my pen, concept of of making the containers all refillable. So in the short term, this is more for sort of locals who want to buy shampoo and wax and things like that, and once that's finished, they can bring it back to and get a little bit of a discount just for refilling the bottles. What he would like to do is take this nationwide, and you've got to say you kind of applaud him for pushing that boat out. It's all part of the eco-drive stuff, waste less plastic. It's balancing out between the cost of returning the bottle and the environmental impact of having to return a bottle to be refilled. There'll be ways around it.
Well, I've been a fan of this idea for ages. I've always suggested that somebody like Spotless Water, for example, who've already got a network, can tie up with manufacturers. So I've talked to manufacturers, I've talked to people about it, but nothing happens. And the one thing that strikes me is that with product development, yes, I'm sure in 5-10 years' time there will be car care products that are far superior to what we have at the moment. But the differences between the next release, and trust me, we see all the new releases of all the products and we test them, and there might be incremental improvements, but there's not that much headspace for it to get much, much better. So look at other avenues in which you can improve your product offering, and one of them is the ecological side of it, and the distribution side of it. So if you do have refilling stations so people can go and refill it, and they already have it in Germany, in these wash zones, you go, because you're not allowed to wash your car at home.
You have it in the UK in Waitrose for your laundry detergents, don't you?
Yeah, and it's a thing, even in little old Malmesbury, there's a refill shop, and it's about being able to offer that facility, but with a broad range of products, and that involves people setting up places and then basically hosting anything from 25 litres to 250 litres worth of given products, and having an efficient distribution system. So, if you look at distribution, the A game in that is somebody like AutoSmart with their model in terms of getting bulk chemicals around. That's far superior to other models, which rely more on postal services and stuff like that. So there's a solution here, and I think Wayne has started it, and hopefully you'll be able to carry it through. And
it's a time thing at the end of the day. If it's a very time-consuming thing to try and organise for you to do it, great. A couple of other little things I found that were quite interesting in there was a glaze kind of product that's actually come out I think with better results than the winner of our last glaze mega test in
Yeah.
12. If not better, then at least on a par with, from quite a surprising, I suppose, manufacturer. So you can have a read the magazine to find out what that is. Oh, I'm such a tease. And the last thing, if for me, is the 2 Rupes panel wipes, which we featured in the last new products, but because they were only released at SEMA a week or 2 beforehand, we didn't actually have our hands on them, so we wanted to give them a little bit of an actual trial. And whilst the light's very good on its own, Strong is probably the main contender of them, and I think that's probably replaced G-Technic panel wipe as our kind of ultimate benchmark for something that will get rid of absolutely everything. It's not the sort of thing you want to use in every scenario. Bit like panel wipe wasn't. GT panel wipe. I've just got G-Technic panel wipe wasn't. But if you want certainty that you're getting rid of absolutely everything on the surface that might be disguising marring left behind,
it's a way
Strong has come up top on that.
Particularly as compounds, and particularly things like all-in-ones are getting better and better at providing kind of resistant acrylic fillers that are pretty tough. And in the past, as you say, G-Technic or Veritas have been the only things that really pull them out.
However, I did spray it onto some very fresh paint as well on a panel that I was playing about with, and you need to definitely only use it on very cured paint because it just turned to jelly for me. So. Lovely.
Well, for me, the new product I really liked was the Labo Cosmetica glass cleaner. And the thing is, so Labo have, which you will have seen by now, hopefully, otherwise I'm going to prison in Milan because it was under embargo. They have put their range into a new bottle design, which is really cool, and it's actually practical, and it's very bespoke, and it's got some real metallic in the plastic, which is cool. However, one of 2 new products, we had a tire dressing from them as well, but is a glass cleaner. Now, what's been weird is that Labo have been on the scene, as Labo at least, for 5 years now? 4 or 5 years we went over there. It was issue 11 we saw them. But
I think we first went over there issue 11, and it was
pre-COVID.
It was already a big brand in Europe.
Yeah, it was certainly getting there. The first actually I saw was 2017 when we went to Holland on a Euro tour, and Dino van Middendorp had it there. So it was fairly new at that point, definitely. But anyway, so all this time, at least 6 years, and they don't have a glass cleaner. You know, Mafra, the kind of the parent company that makes lots of car care products, has lots of glass cleaners, but not Labo. And Labo's got this ethos of we don't make something unless we can improve on what's already on the market. And glass cleaners are pretty straightforward, to be honest. I mean, you get your different types. And we did a glass cleaner mega test, and we definitely found some are better than others, but we're talking small increments. None of what was in the glass mega test was a bad product. But Labo developed a gel-based formula, so it's not thick, but it's certainly thicker than a liquid, so it has kind of a cling element to it. And we feel that, it's significantly better as a glass cleaner in most situations. So I was impressed with that, and they stick to the ethos. A lot of companies we go and talk to will feed us their philosophy, and they'll say, this is what we do, this is what we believe in, this is our values. And you sit there and think, that sounds like any other mission statement. First time we went to the Labo, I was up with Marco, the head honcho, and he gave me a card and made me read their philosophy in sort of 4 or 4 lines off the back of it. And it was quite scary, but I did it. And one of them was never bring out anything unless you can guarantee that it's going to be better what's already on the market, and they stick to it. So I applaud them for that side of things.
And they've got rid of the hashtags.
They have, haven't they? And I tell you,
from the 2 products we've seen anyway.
Yeah, what I think it is. So they had saw the promo video on the new bottles, and they had an artisanal Italian sort of drawing what the bottle should look like in pencil. And Artisanal, yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, you feel it.
Good to know.
And
the brushes.
And I can just see, I don't know if this happened, this is just complete imagination, but I can see Marco saying it must have the hashtags because everybody's on social media and that's why they have them, so it's all automatically hashtagged. And the artist man saying, no, the hashtags here are not elegant, they're not pretty.
Having a square glasses meltdown into his polo neck.
And then they had a fight, argument over whether they should have hashtags or not. You've got Marco, the hardcore Italian, you've got the designer who's twiddling with his paintbrushes or whatever.
Throwing 2B pencils at him.
Yes. So this is what I expect happened, but there's absolutely no evidence to support it whatsoever.
Maybe they just had a calm conversation and made a decision. So
you've been there before.
Yes.
So it's cool, and the new design is cool. The only thing is they've kept the same bottle lid size, and so if you accidentally break the spray on the top of a Labo bottle, you have to sacrifice a spray from another Labo bottle because nothing else fits it. It's like a 24mm but with a weird pitch, and they haven't changed that, so it still means just look after your triggers. And then we go into hardware section. And Aaron, you went 3D bonkers.
Yeah, well, we did a couple of products before this, but we did a little article at the end on the emergence of 3D printed accessories that are now coming onto the market more and more. Flex released a load of free-to-use designs that you could have printed or print yourself if you have a printer. For things like little pad holders and machine holders and things like that, which is quite cool. I did a bit of a dive into Thingiverse, which is a big collection of
Designs,
publicly available design that people just make and you can print out versions yourself.
Like guns.
And we looked at what's available on the market. And the only major manufacturer and designer of 3D stuff at the moment, though there are a couple of odd little bits and pieces here and there, is APS in Germany. And we spoke
Autopflege Shop.
Autopflege Shop. And we had a chat with Felix, the owner over there, who sent us over some of his bits. We put them to the test ourselves, and we gave 2 bits to Steve McMahon of Geeky Detail Reviews to give us a bit of an independent assessment. We gave him a really cool little scan grip attached light, clip-on light for the PXE, and a brush holder for the PXE. And it's quite cool, all of these little bits, because they've actually been sent down to Flex, or rather Felix sent the first couple of bits he did over to Flex to say, hey, what do you guys think of these? And they came back and went, yeah, these are really cool. You can use our quick release design in there.
Patented.
Yeah. So they're fairly open to letting third parties do little attachments for
which is really good, because a lot of companies, I can see a lot of companies worldwide would be taking great offence that if you were creating basically unofficial
we'll have
accessories.
That design, thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly. So no, had clap hands for Felix on doing that. The testing with Steve did not go entirely according to plan.
No, well, it highlights some of the, if you like, deficiencies that you can get with 3D printing. It's not perfect. There are various different types of 3D printing, which we go into in the article. But that's also offset by the prices of some of these things, because even buying these things from APS for a tiny little accessory that if you were to have printed up in manufactured in injection mold and things like that, you'd have to order thousands at a time to make it worthwhile doing, and because of that you've got to put a £10,000 order together, which means you have to charge probably 10-15 quid per item just to make it worthwhile, whereas because you can print these on demand, some of his bits and pieces are like €2-3 for a really useful little attachment. So that's the payoff. If you want higher quality things, then you're going to have to pay more for it, because it's going to have to go through a different manufacturing process.
But there is potential, particularly with 3D printing. There are some more advanced versions of 3D printing which would make tools that are stronger or have better properties. So,
which you can read about in the article.
Yeah, indeed. For me, hardware, I hate to go back to sound like a bloody fanboy, but the carpet brushes by Labo, where they had polyester brushes on the outside and brass filaments, would you call them, I guess, on the inside of it. And everybody was going,
bristles.
Bristles, that's it. Go, you don't want to use brass, it's going to do all sorts of damage. Well, actually, brass isn't that dangerous if it's used correctly.
Not when it's necessarily. It's not like a wire brush, but it's got really stiff bristles. These are really fine brass bristles that are able to get in between fibres effectively and remove dust and ingrained dirt from in between fibres, but still maintain the strength of those thicker polyester outer brushes, so you're able to go into sort of a lot of a finer gradient, if you like.
It was good. And they got one for carpets, one for seat upholstery. And I'm trying to remember the name of the man who I'm sure was involved in the development of them. Franco, that was it. And I saw he's been given an award by Reggie. In fact, was on my feeds this morning. Not sure it was, because it was all in foreign, but, an award has been given. So that's good. Guide section. In brief, because we are, how many minutes are we on now?
53,
marvellous. So I went down to the south coast and met a man about a boat at JDK, in fact, and we played around with this. It was a Princess V39, which was a kind of a big, for me it was a big boat. For him he was like, no, it's just a little run around for the rich and famous sort of thing. And we learned about polishing. We were using some Menzerner, some Svizzer, and he had a couple of Flex, a couple of Rupers, an Udos, and something else as well, using pretty much every machine and pad sort of
21
combo.
as well, didn't he?
21, yeah, under the sun, and that was good. So we're hoping to do a bit more on boat detailing and go and learn a bit more about gel coat and stuff like that in future issues. So this is like just kicking off on a basic clean, prep and polish.
Yeah. Next we had a little look at alloy wheel protectors. There's a few on the market now. We picked 3 of what we perceive to be the most popular. Alligator, Wheel Love and Rim Blades. They all offer something very different to the end user depending on what you're using it for. Obviously Alligator are adhesion free, so they actually held in by the tyre, whereas Rim Blades and Wheel Love are adhesion, which almost look like they should be exactly the same, but there are some differences further down. I should also say that Rim Blades do another type of protector called Rimfinity. We didn't include that because it's not really a DIY applicable protector, because you do have to force the tyre off the bead, which is further than I've ever bothered to go, but yeah. So, and also it's price wise, because they came in with a massive price differences between them. Between Rim Blades, which I think were about 35-40 quid for the set, I can't remember off the top of my head. Wheel Loves were about 140 quid for the set, so you've got this massive price gap in between them, and it's up to you to work out if paying an extra 100 quid for a set is worth it for the difference in protection you get.
And the ease of application.
Yeah, ease of application. Alligator, you have to lift the car off the ground, deflate the tyre, bang these protectors in. But conversely, if you knock them and they come off, they can be knocked back into in many cases, whereas Wheel Loves and Rim Blades, if they contact the curb and they're ripped off, then you have to replace them completely, which means taking all the adhesive off the tyre, off the wheel, and re-cleaning it and putting a new one on, ordering a new one in the first place. So yeah, different strokes. Have a read.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we had a dry ice article with Dan of Reflect Automotive Detailing Valeting Detailing in Epping in Essex, and he is not the first. I know he's not the first, but one of the first people to have a dry ice machine in the UK. His is a Dry Ice Energy Vario, which is quite a high-end machine. We know Dry Ice Energy from Germany. In fact, I jumped on Gernot, who's the owner of it, at Decon to get some further information, and we actually did quite a lot of research. I had a couple of hours on a video conference with some technical people and Gernot going through that. And we took some bits and bobs over. Dan had a old Fiesta XR2i or RS Turbo or something like that. And it was before my time there, from the 90s. And we're showing us all the different surfaces it does and doesn't work on. And so we kind of try to put together a guide that was kind of explains the limitations and the strengths of dry ice, and also a little kind of angle on the business side of dry ice, as in, if you're a detailer and you're thinking, "Ooh, should I get into this?" Go in with your eyes open. It's definitely a good idea for some, but it's definitely not for everybody. So we try to provide something that can at least help you with that decision-making process. And the final article was a monster, wasn't it?
It's a long old read. We even mark it as long read on the on the pages, but it was a fantastic Mike Phillips, who is now Dr. Beasley's Mike Phillips.
Announced this morning.
This morning, I think.
Told us last week.
And he's done an entire article on 2 different types of glass polishing, topical and subsurface. So that runs through getting things like etch marks and bits like that off of the glass and how you go about that, and then tackles getting deeper scratches out, although there are obviously limitations to what you can remove, as we found in our look at it back in issue 12, I think it was.
Yes, when we tried with Seriglass and various other bits and bobs, didn't we?
Yeah.
And with limited success and much swearing.
Yep, absolutely. So it's a really nice long article, loads of photos, loads of knowledge in there, so worth having a read through. And the glass subject brings us very nicely onto Mega Test, which we'll come back to after the break.
Issue 17 of the Pro Detailer magazine is available for pre-order now at www.prodetailermagazine.com. If you would like to pick up a copy first, you can also go to Waxstock, which is this coming weekend at Coventry, Saturday afternoon and Sunday. And all those who pre-order will be sent out before the show, so it should arrive just before the show or shortly after, and it will be on general release the following week. So now we are going to go back into the mists of time when we were joined by Mr. John Deleu mid-mega testing to give you a little bit of insight in how all that worked. So we're joined here by Mr. John of Deleu of Forensic Detailing.
Howdy guys, good to see you all again.
Indeed. It's been quite a hectic couple of weeks for us lot, hasn't it?
It has. We've been doing in-depth testing on these glass sealants with one aim of finding out what is the best product.
It's been a mega session. So yourself has come in and we decided to do glass sealants. God knows why we decided that, because they're bloody difficult to test.
I think the alternative was ceramic coating, so this was the lesser of the evils.
So we thought for a second, okay, how are we going to test all the different aspects of glass coatings? Because the main thing about them is about water repellency when you're driving along, and if you turn your lights off in the snow and then just put on like one fog light or something, it feels like Star Wars. It's quite fun if you do it 120 miles an hour. Not that we are condoning such behaviour, but do it.
What if you've got 120 miles an hour?
Quite regularly, thank you very much.
Oh, you beat the train.
Downhill.
So that's one element, but the other element is how long they last, how easy they are to put on, how well they resist, or how easy they are to de-ice in winter, how easy they resist, or how well they resist misting up in, when you're hot and sweaty in your motor car.
Yeah, and how much they cost is important as well, isn't it?
So, in order to that end, what we've been doing, we've really well apportioned duties this time, because you have taken all the potions home to you down in, I always want to say Dungeness, but it's not. Where is it?
Bognor Regis.
That's the one. And same sort of principle.
Where's Dungeness?
Kent. It's stony and nuclear.
It sounds more Scottish.
I go down there, live in a tent and look at birds sometimes. Well, I did when I was young. But anyway, there's an insight.
The avian variety.
Avian, yeah. You don't get much else down there, trust me.
The bushes get in the way.
Very little bush there, actually. Quite a lot of nets, though, for catching sparrows. Anyway, never mind. So we're getting diverted, but you took them back with you along with a camera, proper camera, rather than one of your vlogging, like, YouTube-y thingamajiggles, and did what I would describe as real-world testing on your BMW.
Yeah. I mean, it's very simple. We took all 12 products and I prepped them with an identical process to bare bone them using the 3D glass polish, and then 50-50 wipe down with water and IPA. And then I started each product following the manufacturer's instructions from that point onwards, with a caveat that if the product then said, like maybe the Nanolex, that you should use their glass polish, to prep the glass, we'd already done that. So it's really starting from the application point and following their instructions.
How'd you get on with the 3D glass polish out of interest?
Very good, yeah, very good. Nice and water soluble, so you use it. It doesn't dust. You just whiz over it. I use the force rotation and the round pad. I'm not trying to polish the glass, just trying to get off the previous film. And then if you give it a buff, and then you can go on with some water and it just melts the product off the screen. You've got the hydrophobic film. Very good, actually. In fact, I think I might pick some of that stuff up.
Well, it's relatively new. They've been developing it for ages. I know Mike Phillips last year bought some over and did some demos after Waxstock over at Kelly's. And no, it was awesome. In fact, Uncrashable 3 was the test vehicle on the 2 days. So the windscreen has been polished by Mike Phillips.
It doesn't dry out either, which is really nice. Some of them vape very, very quickly, and then you're drying a crust off. This stuff stays workable, and then when you want to get rid of it fully, water just melts it off, and it's nice to get out of the pad. So yeah, I'll probably actually pick up a bottle and do a little review on that, because it's good stuff.
Happy days.
But going on to the products, there is a big difference between like how you apply these. We have almost two categories of products: consumer grade, where you get quite a lot of product, and then the professional grade, where you get a relatively small amount, maybe as little as 1 or 2 applications.
Unless it's CarPro, in which case you get about 4 mil, but we think that might be a manufacturing issue.
There was hardly any of the CarPro product. Then some of these products as well, they want you to apply 2 or 3 layers because it ensures that you're going to get a proper covering. But then when it comes to ease of application, you've got to do everything then 3 times. And then suddenly you ask yourself the question, which one would I like to apply out of all 12 of these? If I had to do this as a professional, or if I had to put it on my car as a hobbyist, what one would I want to reach for? And that's what was in my head all the way through doing these. Also paying close attention to the residue that you have to buff and how you have to buff it and how awkward it is to get that residue off. And there was a difference. Some of the residues were tough. Some of them were oily and you got to chase them out. Some of them were absolutely brilliant and really surprised me, because I've always felt glass sealants are a bit fiddly, and you can see everything through the glass. So it's got to be crystal clear. And they all claim, a crystal clear finish, but some of them a lot harder to get that crystal clear.
Well, that's something
finish.
you're going to be looking at, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're going to be taking them on the road to have them professioncy assessed for clarity.
By Row Point of all people.
Yeah,
Lovely
so we got another test, haven't we? And we're going to call that transparency, because that's what this device.
I'm glad you finished with trans with that.
Yeah, it was a trans something. Yeah,
you can't call them that.
Well, you can. I identify as slim when I'm a bit bulky. I'm trans slender.
Aerodynamic.
Yeah, but so the transparency, we're going to Row Point. Hopefully, we've got to confirm the details with them. We know they have a device that measures transparency of glass, so we're going to look to put all these products out on tiny glass
squares. Test slides, really.
Yeah, and that's going to be a challenge, following the manufacturer's instructions as close we can, and then measuring the transparency of those test pieces. And we're reliant on, we want a machine that's very sensitive so it can pick up differences. If it's not sensitive enough, we don't know. We might put them all through and they all come up with a reading of 1. So,
and that's the joy of this. But it's a weird, there's a mix between what I call kind of empirical and qualitative evaluation. So, for example, when you're doing ease of use, it is evaluative. It's not empirical. But at the same token, there is significant difference between these, both in terms of how many stages the instructions force you to go through, and also in terms of actually doing things. In terms of, they'll all say, right, or all but a couple say, right, buff off. For some, that's a 10-second job. For others, it's a 10-minute job.
Yeah, so it's that time factor as well.
Exactly.
We were talking about this. If you've got to wait like half an hour for a product to cure and you've got to do 2 layers, that's an hour of time spent waiting for a cure. Yes, you're going to go and do something else, but there's so many jobs to do. If you're a professional and you're trying to do a detail that involves protecting the car as well in one day, you're going to be at it, foot to the floor, going through this process as quick as you can. And anything which slows you down is a negative. So there's that balance. So the professional grade products, you're expecting to get more performance out of them, but the trade-off seems to be a higher cost per application and perhaps a more involved application. And what I want to know from this test, is it really worth it? Or are you best off buying a product which is good, can get near to the durability of these professional ones, but it's a fraction of the cost and is an absolute piece of cake to apply, and it's pretty idiot-proof?
That's the thing, because if you're an enthusiast and you say you're doing your car once every other week, just for argument's sake, with the products, I mean, we've been doing the durability testing already, and they're all doing fairly well so far. If there's a product that is as easy to put on as, say, Infinity Wax, which is an easy one of the category, I'd be happy to do that as part of my wash procedure every fortnight. Yeah. Whereas, for example, the more in-depth, say, G-Technics, so that's quite nice to put on, but you do have to put 2 layers, one circular, one vertical, one horizontal, 3 layers.
That one.
3 layers with how long between each coat?
5, and then 15, and the final wipe down with the residue remover. So that's an example of one that's going to be a bit more involved. But is the trade-off then, you've got a really strong application because you've got 3 layers.
Yeah, do I only need to do that once a year, in which case it's actually much quicker overall.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the trade-off. And also, in terms of, for a professional point of view, you want to be able to offer a glass sealant that lasts a long time. That's why you would spend, I mean, some of these kits we've got here are 70 plus quid. And they'll only do a couple of cars. But if, say, take Nanlex or CarPro or any of those, and you put them on and the customer's like, wow, this is stuck for a year, and then it starts beating off and they'll come back to you, that works really well. But if you're an enthusiast, I've got no problem with using a quick squirt and wipe each time.
I think one thing that goes in favour of the pro ones is that regardless of what you're using, really, to get the best results out of any glass sealant, you should just do a strip down polish.
Yeah.
And that is not something that everyone's going to do, but you should, because it gets any film off of the car, and you've got that crystal clear glass to start with. It's all got no beading on it or no patches of anything. You put on top of that, you're much more likely to get better results. So if you're going to go to that length and polish that glass out, you could say, well, then it's a bit like coating a wheel. If you're going to take the wheel off the car and prep it and clay it and decontaminate it and polish it, would you then put a wax on it, or would you then put a ceramic coating on? So what we're looking for is that the pro grade products are like the equivalent of a ceramic coating for your paintwork, that give you that durability, and then you'll pay the money. Same, people will pay the money for a coating, even though it costs 10 times the price of just slinging a wax on there or whatever, because you don't have to then touch your paintwork for a couple of years in terms of polishing and decontamination. So
that's true. I mean, and the tech is interesting here because we've kind of broadly divided these two into what we think are what we call siloxane, which are easy to apply, but they don't bond as well, so they don't last as long, to silanes, which are more of a pig to apply. They're less hydrophobic, but they do have durability, and it's the OH bonds that's up, I believe a hydrogen bond that happens between them, a kind of covalent bond. So that these kind of two techs, we've been presuming it that if it's in a small bottle and made by a coating specialist, that it's going to be that basis, and if it's in a squirt and wipe made by a more retail friendly, it's going to be the siloxane approach. We're not entirely sure that all the ones we're using that are billed as nanotech coatings, should we call them, are in fact nanotech coatings rather than just normal stuff in small fancy pants bottles.
Yeah.
Now, we don't want to throw accusations across because we don't have the chemistry to prove one way or the other. And either way, one would expect you couldn't have a high solids coating in a glass thing because of the transparency issues and the rest of it. So they could well be just, in a way, dumbed down paint coatings.
Could be. I think some of them feel like they might have smaller ounce of ceramic material in them, like coating resin, silane.
Solids,
Possibly. Some of them that are in the pro category might not, but as long as that product delivers, I guess whatever's in there, we're not too interested in. But there's one thing we have noticed is that all these products are different. That's for sure.
That's a relief as well, because there's nothing worse than if you're given a set of products to test and there are two or three that are so similar and you sit there thinking, I know that these are the same things in different bottles.
Yeah.
And the problem then becomes, separating them and say, well, look, these are the same, so we have to go on price or on bottle quality or instructions. And instructions or something. So G-Technic, for example, were brilliant instructions. Yeah. Whereas there are a couple, we feel there are actual errors in the instructions. There are a couple that say you don't buff it off at all.
Yeah.
And so we've been following those instructions. Well, they look rubbish on the glass. They just, it can't possibly be right, but we have to follow the instructions because that's what the customers would do.
Yeah, there's big variance in the instructions. To be fair, the sort of more retail-y ones are so informal. Some of them don't tell you, they'll say clean the glass first and then apply it with a cloth onto the windscreen, wait for it to haze, buff it off, and that's the instructions. And potentially you could follow those instructions and have an awful application because you've got residues all over the glass and you think this product's rubbish, but no, it's the prep. So that's one part of my ease of application. I'm looking for the companies that have talked about the importance of proper prep. And a few of them have got it absolutely spot on, and quite a lot of them don't even mention it. So there is that. So that's taken into consideration. Ease of application is quite speculative. Someone else could do this and come up with completely different conclusions. But I think I've got a good idea of the ones that have done it well and have made the effort. And in combination with the instructions, the product actually, you go through those instructions, you get a good application. It's easy to work with. It's not difficult to buff, and you've got a good finish. Then you're in with a chance of getting the top marks in that category. And we still haven't done all the results of this. We're halfway. We were halfway through durability testing. I've done the ease of application. I've done a quick write up that I've sent to you, but we still need to go through that and probably analyse it before we do those sort of grading, if you like. We've still got to finish off hydrophobicity. We've got to do transparency.
We've done oleophobicity and a fair bit of hydrophobicity.
Yeah, this isn't just marking we pulled out of a hat. This is based on a poll we put out to all of our newsletter readers to find out exactly what the public want out of a coating. Now, this might not be what a manufacturer thinks they want out of a coating. The manufacturer might think they want it to be rock hard and long lasting, whereas actually they just want it to be very hydrophobic and they'll put it on every 3 months.
Yeah.
This is what we're marking on what you, the end user, wants.
Yes, and equally, building on that, the contestants in there, because we've done quite a bit of social media on this, and we get lots of people saying, put this product in, half of which we haven't heard of, to be fair, and a lot of them obviously, it's very international nowadays, and these are products that aren't even available in the UK in some cases. But what I would say is we did do a poll asking people what was their favourite glass sealant, and we have taken that very much as a steer to the products that are in here. So again, going back to G-Tech, that was one of the most popular ones in there.
Yeah.
We've added in a couple wildcards because there's one, for example, from an Italian company. They haven't released it yet. We haven't even got instructions. The SDS is in draft, all things like that, although it's impressing us so far. And so we kind of took the prerogative to put this in because, look, we know these guys do good stuff, so let's put it in and see what happens because nobody's heard of it because as far as they're concerned, it doesn't exist. But we've also put in, and this is something I think is really important, what I call super retail products.
Yeah,
So
mass market
mass
products
market,
that we all know of: Rain-X, Stoners, Duxback. But then we've got Soft 99, which have got tons of glass products. Then we've got big brands. I mean, I always think it's good to have Geon, CarPro, G-Technic in these tests because they're like
and Nanolex on the same
and
line.
Nanolex. Yeah, you know, you want those pedigree coating brands in some of your tests because those brands kind of promise next generation cutting edge technology better than your kind of old whatever product it is.
Yeah, the one your grandfather used. What's really interesting though is Geon. So they have got a kind of a ceramic feel to them, something like G-Technic. I'd say G-Technic has got more of a kind of a technical side to it, and Geon's a bit more, you know, sexy floppy haired types of people. But the Geon one is in a applicator, much like the Soft 99. It's it's focused on ease of use, and we don't think. I mean, I think they use terms like nanotech, but it's not. It's not so much got a coating appearance.
I don't think the Geon is a coating.
No.
I think it's just it's in a very good bottle with the felt applicator built in, and I think it's just a glass sealant. So that one, you know, this was one thing that was going through my mind was, could you just take Rain-X, put it in a glass 30ml bottle
and say, hey.
Yeah, because it does perform. We know that, you know, it's a solid product, it's been around for generations. And I was thinking that might be what's going on.
Is this new business for you?
Yeah, I mean, the forensics
you're
glass
the new Mr.
sealant.
Fix,
I'm
aren't
going to just
Yeah, well, we know there are already ceramic brands in the UK where they literally buy it in like 100ml or 1500ml and decant into little bottles and sell as an apparent brand.
Yeah, and it's especially that little coating bottle. So I was looking at these pro grade coatings and thinking, are these coatings, or are these just, you know, glass sealants in a coating bottle? But I think from testing them with a few of them, I can spot that there's a difference. There's some similarities. So there might be tiny silane content and a little bit of, you know, mixed with the siloxane mixed in with it or whatever. But they don't feel exactly like ceramic coatings to me, and they're probably not.
I'm sure they're. I mean, obviously they're going onto a different surface from paint, and glass and paint they might look similar in terms of gloss, but they are different.
Yeah,
and
if you took a ceramic coating and put it on glass, I think you'd struggle to apply it without seeing what's going on with the coating. You know, a high spot on paint or some murkiness in the finish you can deal with, but if you deliver that to a customer on glass, it won't be acceptable. And what does a coating do in terms of friction? Maybe the coating causes all sorts. A coating could cause all sorts of problems with wiper judder and all that sort of stuff. So we just don't know really.
Well, we tested that too with wiper judder. Just
we have,
FYI.
yeah,
that's important. Because I don't want to use detergents on it, because then you're kind of testing the detergent, and then you've got the compatibility between the detergent and the coating. It gets very, very complicated. We just do water pressure. I can adjust water pressure and say, right, this took a bar, this took 5 bar, etc., etc.
Yeah, those tests are good. They might be very hard to separate. That might be the problem. But what we're doing in this glass sealant mega test is we are taking a really good kind of approach, a testing approach, like I'm staring at the tilt table that Bert and Ian have built so that we can test roll down angles and hydrophobicity. And that's a really good approach. We measure the angle. We've got a set amount of product, water that we put down each time, and we just do this test, and it's going to give us reliable data on hydrophobicity. And so it's things like that separate this from just putting them on and just sort of pouring some water on them and think, you know, it's very difficult to test this without taking this kind of lab style approach, if you like. It's got to be a combination of both, isn't it?
It has, and we obviously don't have a lab. We have to think out the box because
but this is what they use.
And this tilt tape.
And we've got a test rig. How many detailing brands that have released a glass sealant have a test rig to test durability?
I think some do.
How many though?
I can think of one.
One.
You're thinking of the Germans, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're thinking of Nanolex.
Yeah.
I think G-Tech had or have one. I think they do, but that's the only people who I would think have got one. However, one of them, who was it? Was it CarPro? Said it's something like it's gone through 40,000 wiper cycles. So they've might have done something or sent it off to be tested by a third party. But I do absolutely take your point.
Yeah.
The most of these people here have not. But then again, the glass sealant, there are compounds that you can basically buy prefab that you can then blend into your own product, and they're all owned by an Indian company, Merck or something like that, I think. Yeah. And so you actually find the active ingredient is the same in a lot of these.
There's a limited amount of siloxanes that you could for this sort of application. So there might be some shared chemistry between them, but I'm from applying them all, they're pretty much there's some big differences between them as well. One thing I've noticed we talked about, all of the ones that are grippy to buff tend to have a higher chance of squeaking and squealing and then juddering.
And less hydrophobicity.
Yeah,
a lot of the
possibly.
easy on ones are creating amazing beading. It's like something like Bead Maker or one of the QDs that create or spray sealants that create amazing beading, but they don't necessarily last. And then there are ones that have less beading, but they seem to go on and on.
Yeah. So this will probably be one of the most comprehensive glass sealant tests ever done, and I think we're testing.
It's a very narrow
these.
band we're basing it on.
It is, yeah. We're the only one, but I would say that the testing we're doing here is more than 90% of the brands would have done on their products because they haven't got a test rig. So how would they be able to do it without a test rig? I'll send it off to someone else, I suppose. So we're trying to test this properly. But at the end of this video, at the end of this magazine,
is a podcast. You see, there are no cameras here, John.
My video, your magazine article, this podcast. At the end, when we finish this, the recommendation will be a really good product. There might be. It's hard to recommend one product because we're comparing apples with oranges, with bananas, with everything.
It's going to be the best. We're going to make it clear and easy for you to judge which is the best product for you and what you value in a glass coating.
Yeah.
So we may have a nominated winner. I suspect we might have 2, possibly even 3. We might have a podium. But either way, it'll be very much a matter of, look, if you're interested in durability, you only want to do this once every couple of years, this is a product for you if money is no object and time is, short-term time is not an issue. Yeah. If you want to be doing this every weekend, you want something easy and nice and stuff like that, then this is the product.
You're going to have an overall winner in the magazine, though, don't you? You usually do, don't you?
We not always. Quite often we'll have joint winners or we'll have a podium. We don't know yet. If there's a standout, we've already got a couple candidates which is standing out in various categories.
Too early to say, isn't it?
But it's too early to say if this, as an all-rounder, justifies everything. So, for example, if the most expensive product here, which I think is CarPro, happened to be very easy to apply, which it isn't, and very hydrophobic and very this and very that, and very durable, then we'd say we'd recommend it, but it's got to be a balance. We've got some which are costing 30 or 40 or 50p per application, and some that are 15, 20 quid per application. So
that's where people have to read your full magazine article. Yeah, and because you're going to go through, there's going to be the section on ease of application, the hydrophobicity, and by reading each of these sections, you'll start learning which ones are good in each category, and you might come to the end and think, well, let's just say the Rain-X, for example. I want something that's cheap. I want something, I get loads of it and it can sit on my garage shelf for two years without going bad and I can reuse it. And I just want to know that it's okay on durability. I don't want it to be the last one. If it's in the mid-order, that's good enough for me. And if it's not difficult to work with, I'll be happy with the Rain-X, for example. Yeah. You'll get a lot like that. But then you'll have a lot of pros reading that are, give me the most high-performing coating. I don't care if it takes twice as long to install. If it goes 3 times longer, I want to be giving that to my customers and I can upsell that and it's good for my business.
It's horses for courses. The only time that there would be an absolute kind of undisputed winner for everybody is if there was a product that was perfect in everything. But I can't think of anything in life which is perfect in everything. Life is one big compromise.
And we're not seeing that as well. We're not seeing that. I think we're not going to preempt results, but I think the more involved the application, perhaps if it leans on that professional side where you get less, there might be some benefits in terms of durability and stuff like that. And the trade-off is price and perhaps a more involved application. That's probably what you're going to see. But even that's a little bit jumping the gun because we haven't fired up the durability rig for the professional products yet, which is going to be coming soon. Yeah. Because the retail ones
are lasting longer than we thought.
Yeah, they're hanging on. Yeah. So, yeah.
Anyway, I think we're going to draw this little segment to a close. But, John, that just leaves me to say thank you so much for helping with this mega test.
My absolute pleasure, guys. This is what we do, isn't it?
It is.
Me and you, we're in a room right now, Ian Seeley, Bert Yule, John DeLue. We've been doing this together for nearly 10 years, haven't we? 2016,
2015 was the very first mag, and that was a mega test. You were one of the anonymous testers.
Yes, so
that was before your YouTube channel.
Virtually, it started in September 2015,
and the first mega test was May.
So what you're saying is it's our fault.
It was. Yeah. Well, no, it's hard. I mean, our paths have been intricately combined and intertwined since, and I've learnt a lot from you, and I've been inspired by a lot of your ideas. And it's been critical part of me growing as a channel, working with you guys, because you've got the same mindset.
Yeah.
We do it properly, and that's what it's all about.
It is. It's about that.
Well, we're going to carry on intricately combining our parts, and
That's one of the most horrible things you've ever said.
let's flash forward in time again to you and me in the studio in a couple of weeks, recording the rest of the podcast.
Oh, joy.
Good stuff.
So we're back now, and John has left us, as you realise. He left weeks ago, in fact.
As has the sunshine.
Yes, it's been a very moist July, having had a very arid June.
It's rubbish, isn't it?
It is a bit crap. But we are just going to tail the last section of the PC with the last bit of the magazine. So, post Megatest, we go into Trader Talk. And Ian, you did an article on where are we going?
Well, I say I did an article. I stole our article from something that we did earlier in.
Oh yeah,
it was late in 2022, wasn't it? When we went to Automechanica, because part of our job for going over there was to deliver a couple of presentations, just to give a UK perspective on the industry to people. Yeah, the Germans love a PowerPoint.
They do. So do I.
I hate them. I absolutely detest putting PowerPoints together.
Well, the best bit was delivering it in English into our microphones, and then it being real-time translated by a couple of little people in little boxes behind stage.
Well, the best bit of that was when I accidentally changed my channel. I could hear myself in German, because I couldn't hear myself anyway. It was really off-putting, and again, quite arousing.
Yes. So yeah, that was presented, and that was on. Yeah, but really, where we think,
it's kind of a bit of speculation, but every now and then it's good to kind of step back, look at trends as a whole, and just have a poke at where we think things are going. And we take a look at the rise of the dealerships and how they're moving in on the detailing side of it, because frankly their revenues are being taken away from elsewhere by EVs not needing servicing and people shopping around online for stuff, so they have to make up their income from elsewhere. And detailing has always been a nice upsell for them. They've always charged 400 quid to put a bag into the back of your car. But now with the
independent market,
but the manufacturers, detailing product manufacturers, I should really correct myself 3 times before I get to the end of a sentence. with detailing product manufacturers seeing a little gap in the market there and able to introduce a bit of a better product, if you like, into the retail stream, there's lots of little pop-ups going up with. I mean, G-Technic are a big one, doing their detailing pods in dealerships at the moment. So, and it's not just G-Technic. Dual Ultra were very big in that, although we're never really sure what's happening with Dual Ultra at the moment. It looks like Concept, not Dual Ultra, sorry, Zirconite. Yeah, no, they're very
Dual
different. Ultra have always been doing it because
They're one of the big 3, I would say, in terms of dealer supply, because you've got SuperGuard, you've got Dual Ultra, and then you've got the Guard X.
Diamond Bright, that's the
Diamond Bright. Well, Dual Ultra, same.
I was trying to remember what the brand name is. You've got Zirconite, who's actually who I was talking about.
Concept.
Who were always owned by Concept or supplied by Concept, or they're a sister company Concept, and now it seems that all the supply has been taken over by Concept once more.
Yeah. It's been taken in-house.
The point is that things are going on and things are happening, and we're just looking at how that's going to affect the market. We see how new technology is affecting new people coming into the market. Maybe things are getting quite easy and it's lowered the barrier to entry a bit. But that's also able to help people's profitability go up. So it swings and roundabouts. And we have a look at the environmental impact as well, and how greenwashing has kind of been pushed away, and companies are actually having to put a bit more effort in now to make their products environmentally friendly, and more customers than ever are actually looking to that as a solution, not just from chemicals, but low water usage and general waste and that. So
yeah, and I think we're in a kind of privileged position in terms of having a perspective on it, because we talk to obviously detailing manufacturers, big and small, and we've talked to quite a few who are much more focused on the mainstream, like Dual Ultra and Lance and stuff. We have chats, and it's good to get their perspective on that. I've got all Creatures Great and
Small going around in my head now, thanks to that.
Oh, okay, well we'll stick with that. Now they're going around my head too. Damn you. So we've got a bit of a perspective on that, as well as obviously the independent detailer. We've talked to all sorts of people at all different levels, and able to kind of hopefully provide a perspective on that might be useful. It could be completely wrong.
It's all speculation at the end of the day, but sometimes speculation's correct.
Yep, sometimes, statistically. So we then have a article from Kingfisher. So Classic Insurance is a name that's been a big one for detailers, particularly unit-based detailers, for a long, long time.
On the insurance side of things.
On the insurance side of things. And Kingfisher has now sort of taken over them, and it's going to go through a rebrand and stuff like that. But it's the same or mostly the same people underneath. And Kingfisher have got a kind of a broad, different sections. So like motorsport insurance and stuff like that. Who coincidentally I know somebody because he used to run with VP Car Care or something, or Viper or something. I can't remember. Anyway, it's all connected. So interesting article, useful for any unit-based detailer.
Just answering a few of the questions that people generally have about, can I let my friend pick up a car for me on a business purposes with my insurance? Is that possible? They answer that.
Yeah, and also they're at Waxstock as well, so do pop by, and if you've got any specific questions, go and say hello. Then we have a Show Us Your Shop article. So I shot back over to Epping. In fact, further to our dry ice article, I took a Subaru gearbox to get some more shots and stuff, and so that was fun. And then we went to Pure Detailing UK, who is it's a pair of guys, Nathan and Alex, and they've been offering a mobile service for a while, and they've basically gone into a unit, part of a grand plan. They work very closely with Starnagloss, as well as being official Lake Country ambassadors, I believe, and quite a lot of Flex as well. So they are basically hitting the ground running. They've got a really interesting kind of business model. The unit actually operates 24/7, which is rare for like independent owner-operated detailers. And so we give a bit of insight into why that business has done so well in such a short period of time, and it might well help you as a detailer to think of new ways of enhancing your business and making it more profitable. And then the final article is a showcase, which is a showcase of well, it was at Manchester Airport Conference Centre, in which there is a big Concorde, as opposed to the little Concorde, Concorde Mini. And in fact, the Queen's Concorde, so it's Golf Bravo Oscar Alpha Charlie, I think is the tail number. And there are 3 American cars which were required to be prepared for a big event there. And the guys at Skidmark Detailing and Skunkworks were asked to prepare it, and so they tied up with Flex and 3D and did a jolly good job on these 3 Yank tanks. So have a read of that, it's impressive. And that is basically the end of the magazine so far. Well, of this one, of 17.
Entirely, we're not adding any more to it.
No.
There's also a detailed directory coming out with this issue as well.
There is, yeah.
Which is a nice little new thing we're sticking in there. It's a little A5 booklet.
It's A4.
Is it?
It's A4.
Okay. Oh.
It's an A4 booklet.
I thought you were going to do an A5 booklet.
It was originally going to be an A5, but basically in the past we've had a listing of, say, PVD members in the back of the magazine. We've now made more space in the magazine for articles and editorial, and there is a detailer directory which is not like directly tied to PVD. It's a kind of tie-up that we'll be doing together, and will be open to all independent detailers worldwide, and there'll be free options and paid options and stuff like that. So it's a new thing. We're still putting it all together. It's still very much work in progress, but that is included in your magazine if you're buying in the UK.
Cool. Well, that's it for another 6 months.
I'm going to sleep. Well, I would say go to sleep, but we've got Waxstock next week. We've got the mags coming in about 5 days.
Yeah.
It's pretty intense. I'm going off to Cornwall now, not for a holiday, sadly. And yeah, then Sunday's going to be spent in spreadsheets, so at least there's something to look forward to.
I'll sleep in August.
Yeah.
August is looking nice.
August, yeah.
I've got a hammock now.
Have you?
Yes.
Why have you got a hammock?
Because I can sleep in a hammock.
Can you? You're just boasting. I don't think I would look good in a hammock. I don't think I'd be able to stay in a hammock.
I don't think it's the hammock that's the problem.
Well, as ever, we'll end on that great compliment from Ian. And we will, I am sure, be back for Series 6 of the podcast season at some point towards the end of this year. Maybe.
Let's not make promises. Might be next year, We'll see how it goes.
Anyway, grab your magazine from www.prodetailermagazine.com. It's always nice to have support, and do feel free to message any feedback to ian@prodetailer.co.uk.
I'm not pressing the button. I'm going to blank that out. I'm going to dub Bert over the top of it.
All right, well, ta-da for now.
Bye-bye.